Hello again everyone, this is me Laban here, and I'm going to show you how to set up Windows deployment services on a 2008 server. Now you can use Windows deployment service to install and configure Microsoft Windows operating system remotely or on computers that are PXE enabled. Now they usually use this to, if you have a number of client computers to set up on a network environment, it might be easier to set your boot images in one place, and from the client machines you can install the operating system from there. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to install this. Now usually Windows 2008 server comes with the deployment services in it, but you will need to install it. So let's go to Add a Role, click on Add a Role. Now some things you must remember before we install WDS, Windows Deployment Service, is that you must have an Active Directory running on the server, you must have a DHCP running on the server, and you must also set up a DNS, because Windows Deployment Services uses these other services in to deploy OSs on a network. Okay, so we go to Add a Role, click Next. Now as you can see on my server, I have already installed Active Directory, DHCP, DNS. Okay, so what we're going to do is install Windows Deployment Services. Just tick the box and click Next. Okay, you can use Windows Deployment Service to install and configure Microsoft Windows operating systems remotely on computers that are PXE enabled. Just what I said. Just click Next. Select the role services to install for Windows Deployment Service. Deployment Server, Transport Server. You can leave those boxes ticked. Click Next. Then to install the following roles, role services or features, click Install. So we're going to click Next from here to install these services. Okay, the following roles, role services or features were installed successfully. Now as you can see here, Windows Deployment Service installed succeeded. Click Closed. So now if you go to Administration Tools, click on Windows Deployment Service. Click on Server. We should see the server name and the domain name under Deployment Services. Now what we need to do is to set up the deployment services from here. Just right click the server name, click Configure Server. As you can see, you can use this wizard to configure Windows Deployment Service. After completed configuration, you may optionally add images to the server or choose to add images later. So I'm going to show you how to add the images. First, let's configure the deployment service. Click Next. Now this is very important, where the path for the image this I have a, let me see, I have a partition drive on this unit, on this computer. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a separate folder. Okay, let's hold 1 second. Okay, so I just created a folder in a partition workspace because I don't like installing programs on the C drive. So I'm going to switch to my new partition. I have a folder, right, remote install, that I created on that drive. So it's located in my drive E, remote install folder. Click next. Now read this carefully. If a DHCP server is running on the Windows Deployment Services server, Windows Deployment Service must be configured to not listen on port 67 and DHCP option tagged. So we need to tick these two options. Click next. The option respond to all known and unknown client computers, because we want the deployment service to respond to known and unknown client computers. Click finish. So the Windows deployment service is being configured. Now you can untick this box because I want to show you how to add your boot image and your install image. Okay, now if you go back to Windows Deployment Service, click the drop down box, we're going to see these options. What we're going to do first, we're going to add a boot image, and then we're going to add install image. Now for this we need the Windows. In this case I am going to install Windows 7 Enterprise Edition for this purpose, for our test purpose. So I have the Windows 7 CD on my laptop, so I'll put it in the drive. So what we're going to do is we're going to install the Windows 7 CD from the DVD drive. Click on, just highlight boot image there, right click boot images, click add boot image. We're going to browse to the location where I have the Windows 7 CD, which is on the drive. Click open. Now we are going to navigate to the sources folder to look for the boot.wim file. I'm going to highlight that. I'm going to click open. So first we're going to install the boot image from the sources folder on the DVD. Just click next. Leave this as the default. Click next and click next. So boot image is being installed into the server's partition drive. Okay, operation completed. Click finish. As you can see, the boot image is installed in the boot image drive. Next we got to install install images, right click install images, click add install image, create a new image group, leave this as the default, that's the name of the group, click next. Again we're going to browse into my DVD, Windows 7 DVD sources folder, and we're going to choose the install WIM image. I'm going to click next. Now in this case I have a couple images here, but I'm going to install the one of the images I have here. Let me just double check my images here. Okay, great. So I'm going to click next here and allow the image to be installed. For the interest of time, I'm just going to fast forward this install here. Okay, great. So we have just installed our install image. Click finish. So you can see it here. Great. So now that we have installed the Windows Deployment Service and installed and set up our image files, we are now going to test to see if we can install operating system on a client's machine. Okay, so let's test setting up a client from Windows Deployment Services. I'm going to do this in a virtual environment, so let me create a client computer. As you can see here, I created a Windows 7 client, so we're going to load the operating system using Windows Deployment Service. Okay, so we double click on the client and we must press F12, then we must press L to boot from network, and then press F12 again very quickly. So here goes. Press F12 here. As you can see, you can choose F for floppy, C for CD-ROM, and L for LAN booting. Press L. As you can see, the DHCP server is switching. Press F12 again. So the DHCP server gave this client an IP address so that it could connect to the server, the deployment server. And with that connection, it is now connected to the boot files on the server, and it's now beginning to load the operating system on this client. I'm loading Windows 7 operating system. So we just need to wait a little while. You can watch the progress bar. As you can see, this is the IP of the server, so it's connected to the deployment server. Okay, so the files is almost completed loading from the WDS Windows Deployment Server. Okay, after this screen, it's gonna ask you for the username and password with someone with administrator privileges to connect to the deployment server to continue the installation. Okay, so once you get the username and password of the administrator account, you just log it in and it will continue the install of the client onto the client computer. And that is how you set up Windows Deployment Services. Thank you for watching.